the Bostonian versus the book. Chris Grove, how are you, my friend? Welcome to the show. First time bringing you on. It shouldn't have been the first time you're joining the show because you had a large part in this show becoming a reality. But thank you for joining us. How are you on this Wednesday?
Yeah, long time coming. How are you guys?
Where are you?
I'm in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada.
Oh, you're in town. Very cool.
Yeah.
So where you live, well, you split here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Wanted to bring you on because obviously what happened this morning and last night in Chicago has got the attention of a lot of people. This progressive tax rate that is going to go, looks like it's going to go into reality here, where the two big main operators are going to pay a lot of money, a lot more money in tax. Is this a good thing? Is this a dangerous thing? Where are you and what Illinois is about to do with their tax rate?
So first of all, I think it's important to underline that this is a tax increase for everybody, right? DraftKings and FanDuel are going to bear the brunt of it, but it's not as if there was some new low end created on the tax rate that was going to enable additional competition from the smaller guys, which I think is the ideal. When we talk about the ideal way to enact a progressive tax structure like this, it accomplishes two things: raises additional revenue for the state by putting more of the burden on the overperformers, but also opens up a door on the lower end for challenger brands to come in and be able to have a little more maneuverability, a little more flexibility in the market. Unfortunately, we didn't see that in Illinois. So I think that's where they really missed the mark. Tax rate for everybody and absolutely no opening for a younger brand, a newer brand, an innovative brand to come in and have a little bit more economic flexibility with a lower tax rate on the bottom end of that progressive scale.
Did they lower the price of the licenses for the lower upscale new guys at all?
Not to the best of my knowledge. I know there is a push to do that because you do have some licenses just sitting there in Illinois. I think they overestimated the demand for licenses in Illinois. And again, that's another opportunity to have selfishly, I'll throw a sport trade out there as an example, since we're investors, to create a path for a sports book like Sport Trade, which is clearly differentiated product, to come into the market, shake things up a little bit and create a little more competition, a little more choice for consumers, which is not something that consumers in Illinois really have right now.
Do operators want to come in with an announced higher tax rate or a progressively higher tax rate? Like, what's the incentive right now, Chris, for a new operator like Sport Trade, who I love the business model and talked to Alex about it for years now, but this is good. What's the incentive? Is someone seeing it as a positive, as an opening today, going, let's get in Illinois now because they're getting the big guys with a higher tax rate?
No, I don't think so. I think that you have that as positive weight on the side of the scale, that you do have maybe a little less flexibility for DraftKings and FanDuel to market, to do promos, et cetera, because of the increased tax rate at the top end. But remember, the bottom end increased as well. And so Illinois is already a relatively expensive place to do business. You add the license fee on top of that, and you've got a lot of barriers there. I don't think that Illinois will be the first choice for a brand looking to expand. And now, look, it's a big state. It's attractive. And especially for someone like a Sport Trade that takes more of a commission-based approach, the trading culture that's present in Chicago, that's present in Illinois, makes it maybe uniquely attractive. But for most new sports books that are looking at the map, Illinois is not a first choice, probably not even a second choice in terms of the states that they're going to prioritize if they're starting from zero or a small number of states status quo.
Chris, how much did the books make it difficult on themselves? Because both Mass and Illinois have referenced the New York 51% tax rate.
Yeah.
That they're willing to pay it in New York. And so cities like Boston and Chicago, which clearly, they're not as big as New York, but they like to consider themselves major metropolitan areas, saying, hey, we've got millions of people too. You guys are willing to pay that tax rate, so we want you to pay something similar. How hard is it for the books to say, well, we're really against this, given what they're paying in New York?
You got to defend Chicago a little bit there, Matt. They don't just like to consider themselves as a major metropolitan area. I think they are, by any definition, a major metropolitan area. But absolutely, the sports books made the bed. Now they have to lie in it. The interest in getting something done in New York and opening up that market, because everyone wanted a major market. Texas was a couple of years away. California was just an absolute cluster, and Florida was opaque, to say the best. So everyone's zeroed in on New York as this is the one of the four big states where we can get something done, demonstrate we can get something done, unlock a large market. And they swallowed a ridiculous tax rate as the price of getting that market open. And at the time, everyone was, I think, in more of a short-term mode in terms of how they're thinking about the impacts. We're thinking more about how we generate immediate growth, increase the TAM, increase the map, players that have access to these products. And no one really, for whatever reason, thought through that next step of, if you go into New York and you accept a 51% tax rate and the sky doesn't fall, inevitably other states are going to look at that and say, we can do that too. But I think there's a second way in which the industry made their bed here, and now they're having to lie in it in Illinois, and it may be the same kind of bed that they have to lie in subsequent states. We're now almost 2 years into a wave of very negative coverage surrounding the steady march of legal sports betting across the U.S. I think it kicked off with Ken Vogel's four-parter in the New York Times about 18 months ago now, something like that. And at the time, I think there was some discussion, maybe this is passing, maybe this is a fad, the media will move on to other topics. Not so, right? I think we've seen this steady drumbeat of negative coverage. And to be honest, the industry just has not done an optimal job in countering that coverage and creating a positive narrative around sports betting. Always on the back foot, never on the front foot, seemingly not as coordinated as it could be in terms of, again, telling a more positive story about this industry. And as a result, that creates a political opening for these kinds of bills. In subsequent states, we may see these bills packaged as part of a broader consumer protection, maybe limitations on marketing, right? All these kinds of openings that allow for the tax rate to be revisited. But in Illinois, I think you had an example of who was willing to stand up and support this industry in the face of a proposed hike to tax rates, who's willing to stick their neck out and defend the industry. I think a lot of politicians were less willing to do so simply because there wasn't much to be gained. This is increasingly an unpopular product, an unpopular industry. That just leaves it more and more vulnerable to these kinds of increases on the tax rate side.
Is any operator making money in New York, Chris?
I think DraftKings says they are. I think FanDuel says they are. Look, if you have enough market share, a high tax rate is overcomable, especially if you're a national operator, you're operating at scale, right? Tax rates are overcomable, but you do have to have an amount of scale that's really only possible in a monopoly or a duopoly. So very difficult for operators down the chain to show any kind of profit, let alone substantial profit in the New York market.
Mike, Chris, there's a question from Mike here. I think it's pretty interesting. It says, do you think there's a scenario where state X raises tax rate X% and a top four operator, I'm assuming he means DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Caesars, or maybe Fanatics,
Probably Fanatics,
actually decides to pull out? Short of that, what could reverse a rising tide with a tax rate? Anything?
I'd be surprised if you see a top four operator pull out. You may see some operators, again, down the chain who have decided sports betting is more of an amenity product for me. I'm a retail operator. If I can offer sports betting, great. Really, I'm here to see if online casino gets any traction, and that's the product I'm more focused on. A top four operator pulling out would be a challenge, only because those top four operators, all publicly traded, all have made some promises to the market, right, regarding growth, regarding profitability as well. So there is a little bit of a give and take there. To the second part of the question, I know this sounds like maybe a nothing burger of an answer, but I'll go back to the way that the industry made their bed here. There has to be a more concerted, a more logical, a more well-executed effort by the major trade orgs for this industry to not just play defense when the attacks come, but to go on the offense and fill that vacuum, that narrative vacuum around online sports betting, and explain the positives of the product, the economic impact on the positive side, the job creation on the positive side, where the tax revenue goes, what it accomplishes, the channelization from the illegal market into the legal market. And I'm not saying no one is making these arguments, but it's clear that these are not arguments that are the highest priority for the trade groups that represent the casino industry. It's also clear that sports betting is not the highest priority for every stakeholder who is participating in the industry. Getting that cleaned up, getting a more focused, more energized, and a more aggressive lobby on the side of telling the positive story of sports betting and making it a product that more lawmakers and more voters are inclined to support or think positively of. That's a big part of how you build that bulwark against additional tax increases in subsequent states.
Isn't it all just to get into the iGaming? Like this is still there's positives to sports betting, and you can find them on both sides. I think you don't have to talk about that it's going to break everybody and the books are greedy. Everybody's greedy in all of it. But isn't there a real motive to get to the iGaming? You've talked about it for years since we first met, and you greenlit this show. You've been talking about the iGaming. The politicians know they're starting to listen. A couple of them going, we better get this tax rate up now because that iGaming, that's the real business. The gigantic number, it's not an amenity. Sports betting can be viewed as an amenity, but isn't iGaming the ultimate goal?
I think the new BVB shirt should be everyone's greedy. I like that. Put that in the shop.
BVB, everybody's greedy.
Everybody's greedy. Put it in the shop.
Fair, right?
If we were having this conversation 10 years ago, I would have been way more in agreement with you, right? Because both of us would have been coming from the Las Vegas sportsbook model, where sports betting has 5-6% hold and generates maybe 3% of GGRs, the milk at the back of the store, from a Las Vegas perspective, right? I think what we've seen over the last 5 years since this industry got to scale, rolled out in a meaningful number of states, you've seen that blended hold rate increase steadily. This is no longer a 5-6% hold product. This is closer to an 8-9% hold product, and that's blended across all states, all products. And at the upper end of the product set with SGPs, et cetera, you're seeing structural hold rates that are closer to 10, 12, maybe even 15%. And you're seeing consumers who are interested in those products, right? No one's being forced to play them. This is a product that a big segment of the betting public says, yeah, that's for me. I want a carnival game. I want a lottery ticket. That's the sweat that I'm interested in. That's the action I like. So as we move more in the direction of a 10% plus hold product, and also as we can increase the velocity of sports betting, right? More data, more markets, so more opportunities to bet. It's not just totals on Sunday, but you can really get more effectively like pulls of the slot machine. You get a higher velocity product. We're definitely moving in the direction of a product that on its own, profitable, sustainable. And if you look at European markets, it's not as if the split between sports betting and online casino is 80-20. It's a much tighter mix than that, depending on the market that you look at. It's not usually 50-50, but it's something closer to 55-45, 60-40, right? So you mix all of that together, and then you consider the fact that I can't point to a state where we're odds on to get an online casino bill in the next 1, 2, 3 years. Just can't. Wow. So all of that suggests to me you're going to see sportsbook operators push more and more in the direction of high hold, high velocity products. And as they do and structural hold increases, as long as players don't balk, right? As long as consumers don't burn out or say, actually, yeah, I was interested in doing that once or twice, but realistically, what I want are totals futures, right? Spread, and that's it. Yeah. As long as those things don't happen, you end up with sports betting being on its own in the US, large, viable, profitable, not for every operator, but certainly if we stay in the world where DraftKings, FanDuel are near as it makes no difference, 75% of the market, pretty profitable for them.
Chris, I've referenced something that you've talked about on this show a lot about the idea that one day there may be a sports book. And I know I've seen it in the prop market, but we haven't seen it per se in the market for sides and totals, where a sports book will only offer same game parlays or only offer a pre-populated grouping of bets that you don't get to choose. You're not choosing first five or full game totals. They're doing it for you. Do you think that model could be sustainable given what you're talking about, that if the public is going to ask for it, that there could be somebody who simply just offers their own pre-populated parlays?
Yep. I think one thing I talk about with people a lot as a thought experiment is what would happen if you just dropped the current Prize Picks product into Ohio tomorrow? Nothing else, right? Just the current Prize Picks fantasy product. Drop that into the Ohio market tomorrow as a regulated online sports book. So they get the license. They drop the current product into the market. What do you think the market share for that product is? And I can tell you that most people consistently answer somewhere between 5 and 10%. That's the market share you'd be looking at almost overnight. Give them a couple months to ramp up and for people to realize it exists, right? So more figuratively overnight than literally overnight, but in a short period of time. Mm-hmm. Consumers have shown us again, yeah, we like these products, and maybe that stripped down version, that simple version is the appropriate way to handle it rather than giving someone choice upon choice upon choice upon choice. Maybe just do give them a subset, a segment. And what you may see, and this is something I've talked to regulated books about and raised the question, I think it's on their minds. Remember, there's slack market access in a number of states. Right? Penn has extra licenses. Caesars has extra licenses. We're no longer seeing the premium for market access in a number of states, not all states, but in a number of states that we were seeing 4 or 5 years ago. We also got a U.S. market. It's so big. It's inconceivable to me that any one brand is flexible enough to resonate with, to connect with all of the consumers in the market, right? So I think there's a world in which a Caesars, a Penn, an MGM, or maybe even a DraftKings or a FanDuel says, we're going to open a second brand. We're going to target a younger demographic because I think all these brands are a little stale. I think if you talk to people 30 and under, none of these brands really feel like they're for that demographic. They're all a little older than that. And the question is just like, is it for my older brother, my uncle, my dad, or my grandparents in terms of the scale of relevance of these brands? So I think there could be a world where one of those operators goes, yes, we're going to launch a second brand. It's 30 and under, and it's a slimmed down version of products that we know are really resonating with that demographic. Easier said than done, but I do think that is on the minds of at least some operators.
Where do you stand then if that's the case? I mean, I've seen you play poker on television. I've seen you be in the business. Yeah. You did good that day. I was texting you the pictures. How do you tell someone with a straight face that product's a good product? That's like telling your kid to smoke in that regard. I mean, listen, I know you're interested in it. Yeah. I know you're interested in it, but go ahead and do it. You're not going to win. 100% you're not going to win. You know it. I know it. I got kids. I wouldn't tell them to do a same game parlay ever in my life. I've turned down jobs because they required me to give a same game parlay. I said, how do I say this is good? We got content people. We got experts. We got everybody in this space that, they're amazingly on Twitter. They're all winning gamblers. But how would you tell them this is good? You should do this. As an operator, I'd be like, we really going to do this? Like, these are kids. They're under 30. They ain't even got no money. How is this a good thing, Chris?
Yeah, well, they made all the money from the crypto. As far as I can tell. So there's plenty of just crypto money sloshing around there. Look, good is an interesting concept here, right? Different people bet for different reasons. From a value perspective, yeah, the bets are not good. Right? Capital N, capital G, not good from a value perspective. These are almost never going to be plus EV. In the situations where they are, those are the exceptions that prove the rule. But I'll tell you, Dave, when I played that poker tournament that you're referencing, it was a funny one. It was an influencer tournament, and Fliff was the sponsor. The people they were supposed to put in dropped out, and so Fliff called me and said, "Hey, we have an extra seat. You want to feel really old for a day?" And I said, "Yeah, I love feeling really old." So that's what I did. I sat, at the Poker Go studios for 7-8 hours with a bunch of 23, 25, 27-year-olds, each with a couple million YouTube followers. And I took the opportunity to do a little field research, right? These people are now trapped next to me. They got to talk to me. They don't really have a choice. And I said, where do you bet? When you bet, what are the brands? If you want to put money in play on a sports game, where do you do that? And it really was Prize Picks, Underdog, Fliff, Better. Not a lot of DraftKings, not a lot of FanDuel in there.
No.
Right? Not a lot of Caesars, not a lot of BetMGM. No. I said the same thing that you said, Dave. I said, these products are, from a whole perspective, these products are just, they're garbage, right? And they're like, yes, we absolutely know. We're capable of doing math. We understand. It turns out that hold is a feature, not a bug, right? We're what they want, especially because these are often people who are betting as part of a community, right? So it's your group chat, it's your Discord, whatever. And you don't want to grind out a 5% hold product when you're betting in that environment. That is no fun to watch your bankroll just sort of steadily chip down over time. Right. What is fun is to either lose spectacularly and all commiserate about it, or every once in a while to have like the massive win, enjoy it. And honestly, the feeling of that loss is kind of imperceptible in terms of this is something we're all doing together and having a good time together from the feeling of the win. It's like when we're leaving Vegas, right? And you hear other people on the plane talking about how badly they got beat up at the blackjack table. And they're not saying it like they're pissed and they're never coming back. They're saying it like they're telling a battle story, something they went through with their buddies, and they had a really good time. And that was that. So yeah, not good at all from a whole perspective, an EV perspective, but in terms of the entertainment value, there's definitely a customer base that says, if I'm going to put money in play on a sports game, that's what I want. High volatility, high return, lose most of the time, occasionally spectacular win. But really what I like are the spectacular failures where we got 4 out of 5, where we got so close like that. That's the sweat that they prefer by and large.
See, I'm from a state where scratch tickets are the highest. It's part of our culture in Massachusetts. Like you walk in, you buy a 6-pack of beer and you buy a scratch ticket. It's a $5 donation. Like you just assume you're hoping one day lightning will strike, but you pretty much know you're going to lose. Is that the mentality we're talking about? That like it's, buy a loaf of bread and a $5 same game parlay and we go off? Like there's no like real expectation of victory. You're not supposed to win when you play it.
I think that's right. And that's why I call them more lottery style games, more carnival style games, because they are not designed to fit that traditional mold of, look, some people, I remember my stepdad was this way with horse racing, right? For some people, the thrill of horse racing is sitting down with the program, applying your system, right? Doing all the work. And that's how you spend your Saturday afternoon. Then you go to the track, you place the bets, but the bets are almost secondary. So that's what some people want, is the process, the research. That's the fun. That's the hobby. For some people, it's just a pure profit motive, right? They're just looking for edge. They're just looking for EV, and that's what they want out of it. And then for some people, we shouldn't forget the vast majority of people, because we exist in our own little bubble where we know a lot of people who bet for a living or who aspire to bet for a living, right? Or who really like the process and are very analytical and very thoughtful about it. And that's what they get out of it. Best I can tell, the vast majority of people who do bets on sports or play fantasy sports for money do so because they find it fun. That's it. It's an entertainment product. And that's when we move out of the territory of good measured in terms of profit potential and move into the territory of good measured in terms of I spent X and I got Y amount of entertainment and I'm comfortable with that exchange. The same exchange you'd make if you bought a movie ticket or you threw a couple bucks at a mobile game or whatever the case was. That's the math they're doing internally. I spent X, I got Y entertainment. I'm good with it.
And it's a part of your life. It's not the only thing you have in life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, we stress that here. Like, listen, it's good to bet. Just don't do it as the only thing you're doing. Like, be involved, know what's good bets, what's bad bets, but don't just blow your bankroll. All right, last one for me, Chris. Thank you for joining us again and talking about all this stuff. But you just mentioned people leaving Vegas and people talking about getting beat up. Are people getting ticked off here in general about the fees, about the parking, and about this F1 race that's causing so much traffic here, Chris? It's unbelievable what's happening to this city. Talk about greed is good, all this other stuff. It's nuts, is it not? This is not the city that we knew 10 years ago, let alone 5 years ago, let alone what the hell is going on here.
I can't even tell if you're doing a character right now or if you're being genuine.
No,
F1 7 months ago, there's no more traffic.
What do you mean?
It's gone. They took down the overpass bridge.
Chris,
yeah, you and I might have to have words on this one. Look, Vegas has gotten a lot more expensive and a lot less hospitable as a result. I think the only thing that's saving us is so have most of the tourist destinations in the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we're necessarily outpacing a New York, a Bay Area, a Florida, a Disney,
Chicago.
right? Yeah, everywhere has gotten more expensive. I'm not an expert, and I can't say that Vegas is outpaced, underpaced. As a consumer, everything feels like it's gotten more expensive, and Vegas doesn't really feel like it's accelerating beyond that. Thing I'll say about F1, Dave, you need that international travel for Vegas, right? And there aren't a lot of things that we can put on the calendar, especially in that part of the season, which is typically a relatively dead part. Not a lot of things we can put on the calendar that are going to attract that kind of crowd. And we need that mix. We need high-end international travel to come to the city. We need all parts of America to come to the city. And getting a shot in the arm for international travel post-pandemic, I think critical. I think we're going to look back at this one and go, yeah, it was a massive pain in the ass if you lived here, especially the first time around. I'm going to reserve a little bit of judgment until the second time around. And, I'm right in the thick of it. So it's not like I'm isolated out in the suburbs and I didn't feel any of the impact, right? That's all right around me.
Yeah.
Not to dox myself, but live pretty close to the Strip. So I'm going to wait for that second year and see if some of that was first year growing pains, teething pains, things they told us they only really need to do once and we bear the second time around. If the second time is as intense as the first, then yeah, Clark County and everyone have to step up and improve the process. But if we bring down the hassle factor a little bit, I ultimately think this is a pretty good thing for the city, especially with the international travel angle.
Yep.
We'll wrap with this kind of along the same lines. What is the market's opinion of the growth for Vegas gambling, all gambling in Vegas? Because we've got so many things. There's videos on Instagram like every day about the growth of the market, the city, bringing new people in here. We have an NBA team that's going to be coming here. We have a Major League Baseball team that's going to be coming here. New resorts are being planned all the time. We've got Fontainebleau that just opened up. We've got a lot of people moving into the market. What does the market, global and domestic, feel about Las Vegas right now?
I think there's a little bit of concern on the locals side. I think we have some look-throughs that suggest the locals market might be softening a little bit. And again, I don't know that that's necessarily out of step with the national economic picture. But look, I think the Strip is about to go through, and I'll talk about the Strip specifically and put downtown to the side as a separate topic. I think we're in a period of renaissance for the Strip. You do get these periods where the Strip turns over periodically, right? You get these waves of development and then you get static periods and then you get waves of development. Looks from my perspective like we are in the midst of a wave of development. If you think about the last 12 months, you've got the Sphere opening in that period. You've got Fontainebleau opening. The Trop is going to turn over, although it's not clear if that'll be a casino property or more of an entertainment property when all is said and done. The Mirage, RIP, just went to Craft Steak last night for probably the last meal I'll get to eat there. But that's going to turn over. And as much as we love these things, I'm going to try and walk. I think Hard Rock turned the volcano back on, by the way, which I am excited about it. It was going off last night, so I'm going to walk over tonight and see if I can catch a volcano show as well. As much as we miss these things because they're iconic to us, and we spend a lot of time there, it's probably good that we have like a giant garish guitar sticking out of the middle of the Strip, right? That we do need that stuff. And that'll be the landmark that someone else has massive memories of, massive formative memories of, that they're tearing down 15, 20, 25 years from now. And we need that kind of turnover. And it does seem like we are in one of those periods. Strip does need to reinvent itself periodically. And so I think that's a massive positive momentum. Sphere especially. Yeah. I know we all kind of joked about that and Death Star and what's it going to look like, but people can't get enough of the Sphere. They need to change that damn movie out sooner versus later. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie yet, but it's just a stone cold bummer. Like it is not the kind of thing as impressive as it is that you come to Vegas to see. But that was the biggest revenue driver for them. The first turn of financials that were reported wasn't the advertising, wasn't the events. It was the movie. It was the movie.
The movie. I mean, when I landed, I came back to Vegas on Monday night, and I left Boston. And I spent the weekend in New Hampshire. Like I said to Dave, like I just forgot like what the Sphere has added to the skyline. Like you come up into the parking garage and you just go, whoa, like it just looks so different with that big globe of ball burning, whatever it was. It was like a tie-dyed Grateful Dead thing they had going on. Yeah. It just makes the whole Strip look different. The whole skyline has completely been altered and your eyes go directly to it. So it makes sense to do more inside of there. Chris, thank you for the time. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate your coming on. Thank you for the insight. We'll do it again soon. All right.
All right, guys.
Thank you very much. That's Chris Grove joining us, a guy who heavily invested, heavily involved. Oh, sorry, Dave. That's not what I wanted to hit with that. Who was a guy. Look, we told you about Chris. Chris is the guy who said yes to this show to become a reality. So good to get him on for the first show. He never did the show before. We begged him to come on the show. Finally did it.
I'm excited. Maybe the early start time allowed him his schedule to do it.
Oh,
so that might have worked. But there's no BVB without Chris Grove.
Right. Fair.
Literally. That's it's plain and simple. He we walked around, we talked, we said this, we said that, and he said, let's go. Just do it. and we figured it out. So yeah, he's the guy that made it possible, and
Yeah.
made sure that upon exit and things,
Postcards from Earth, Addison. It's
it was
called
just fair. What's
the
that?
movie Postcards from Earth. He's asking what's the movie we're talking